Welcome, everybody, to another episode of From the Frontlines with Let's Talk Supply Chain TV. I'm your host, Andrew Johnson, and we're recording another virtual episode because today my guest is a little too far for me to get to. They're in Erie, Pennsylvania. We'll be talking with Jonathan Meighan with Lake Erie Rubber. We're going to ask him some questions about supply chain and a little bit about labor. So hope you enjoy this episode. We're going to dive right in. John, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be good. We had an episode previously, so if you missed it, go back in our archives and you can see our first episode with John. But just remind the viewers, John, exactly what does Lake Erie Rubber do?
Sure. So Lake Erie Rubber is a 60-year-old family-owned company that is now owned by myself as of the past 3 years. And we produce custom rubber products across a lot of different industries, including the rail industry, mining, construction, and many others. I've got just a few parts behind me here to give some examples of, any type of rubber, any size. If it's a custom part, we can probably make it for you.
Cool. Compression molded or injection molded, what's your specialty? Because I know there's two flavors of rubber molding.
You bet. So we do a lot of both. So behind me, you'll see components that are both injection and compression molded. So we can do either. We can do transfer molding too. So any of those processes, we have a lot of experience with those.
You got all the bases covered. All right.
That's right.
So recently, there's some articles out, and one of them in particular caught my eye. According to the Institute for Supply Chain Management, they have a manufacturing index, and the U.S. manufacturing index expanded in March at the fastest pace since 1983. So we're on a tear, apparently, to the supply chain management's index. Are you feeling this surge at Lake Erie Rubber?
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing is we have added more new customers and more new components in the first 3 months of 2021 than we did in the entire year of 2020.
That's awesome.
And I mean, the requests for quotes are coming in at just a blistering pace that we never saw at all last year. And I would say even at a faster pace than I've seen in the 3 years that I've owned the company. So, we're excited for that. We do have a couple of our major customers in the rail industry, which is lagging behind a bit. But we're excited to see that. And I can believe that pace because the way that new parts are coming in and people looking for a combination of totally new parts and also a lot of reshoring efforts that are happening, we're seeing a lot of activity.
Good. That's really interesting because in the first episode that we recorded, which was, I think, about this time last year, the reshoring efforts were in the news. My supply chain group on Let's Talk Supply Chain TV, we were laughing about kind of a new term we had created called sureshoring, #sureshoring, and some other supply chain terms all revolving around bringing supply chains more localized. But you actually hadn't seen that happen yet. Now you're starting to see the effects of that effort across the board kind of come through on a broader level. So that is encouraging.
I mean, we received a full package of things to quote today, and what they said was, again, they've determined they want to move this back to a U.S. based supplier, and so that's why they're bringing us the quote. So we're seeing it a lot now.
That's exciting. That's super exciting. I'd love to hear that. Okay, so with that excitement, though, comes a bit of intrepidation. And from all the manufacturers I've been talking to, the two biggest concerns are their inbound material supply chains and labor. So first off, inbound material supply chains. Do you have any concerns right now with your inbound supply chain?
Yeah, we have a couple concerns. So when you're molding rubber parts, you have to have steel molds to be able to make the parts. And so we've already seen a pretty drastic increase in steel prices, both for molds. And you can see, we're molding a lot of components where they're bonded to a steel plate or metal component. And our steel prices, our suppliers are changing pricing almost weekly on some of those items. And, it's also coming across in rubber as well. We've gotten more increases in rubber pricing from our raw material suppliers this year than we did all of last year. We've already gotten three different pricing structures this year, and we're getting warned that more are probably coming. And if you look at the industry and you watch the news for the rubber industry like I do, you'll see that a lot of the ingredient suppliers who supply our raw materials were putting out statements in February and March, basically saying, look out because the price increases are coming.
Yeah. I've tried to describe some of the shortages to some of my friends in the marketplace, and in a broader context, when everybody's screaming about it, from steel to raw material inputs like you would see in rubber, like carbon black. It's the best way to describe it is the world shut down for an entire year, and more or less. And some countries were more affected than others, but that shutdown, this is just rolling, rippling effects of this massive pullback. And we're also trying to fill pent-up demand. So it's tight across the board from everybody I've talked to. All right. Second part of this last question here was labor. You're in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's deep in the Rust Belt. It's a town that's steeped in manufacturing. It has a lot of rusty factories that are vacant too. What's your labor market like today, and is that a concern as you look at increased demand?
That definitely is a concern, because when we were in 2019, our company was growing at a pretty fast pace, and we were struggling to hire direct labor. It just seemed like there was very few people unemployed. And so one thing that we did is, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we actually made a few hires preemptively, even before volume started to pick up, because we thought that it was coming, and we got some people trained. So that's worked out well for us, because the caliber of person that was available at the end of last year and the beginning of this year was pretty high, because there was a lot of people unemployed. And so, we may do another round of hiring here soon, because looking at it right now, I think there is still labor available in Erie, especially I have found that we advertise on social media and a lot of places, and it brings us a lot of applicants. That's worked really well for us. So, we want to try to get ahead of it, because I could definitely see by middle of this year or towards the end of this year, we may be back in a situation similar to 2019, where there just aren't very many people unemployed. And that makes it challenging to hire on entry-level jobs.
Yeah, it does. Advertising on social media for openings is a smart play, though, to get applicants over just like the traditional inbound applicant funnels that we would go through as employers. So that's smart. You guys are on top of it. Well, if anybody happens to see this and needs a rubber component, where's the best place for them to contact Lake Erie Rubber?
So the easiest way to find us is lakeerierubber.com, and that'll give you many ways to get in touch with us. So if you can remember lakeerierubber.com, you can always find a way to get a hold of us, and we'll get right back to you.
Fantastic. We'll see if we can get an episode 3 recorded here in the next 6 months or a year. It's kind of fun to follow along with the story and a small U.S. manufacturer. And if you want to learn more about Lake Erie Rubber, like he said, check out their website. John's got a really fascinating story about how somebody in his demographic and age happens to own a really old rubber company. So it's a fascinating story, and we'll track along with that as we go. So thank you guys for tuning in from the Frontlines and Let's Talk Supply Chain TV. Make sure to check out the next podcast from Let's Talk Supply Chain, where they explore broader concepts in supply chain and all things supply chain news. So thank you all. See you next time.